This video is brought to you by BTI Institute, a New Jersey leader in certification-based management training.
Hi, I'm Bob Phillips. I'd like to welcome everybody to our October, especially the night before Halloween, Agile Discussion Group. And tonight, I'm very pleased to introduce our guest speaker. I've been working with Irvi at the Federal Reserve in New York, and I have to say that if I do say anything tonight that I don't really plan to say much, that anything I do say is my own personal view, and it does not reflect the New York Federal Reserve or the Board of Governors. And pretty much Irvi's a volunteer. You probably run into her. She's one of the she's a volunteer in the PMI chapter. She's been doing that for I believe around 7 or 8 years. And Irvi's great to work with. She's the Scrum Master at the New York Fed. And prior to joining the Fed, she's also worked in the other financial organizations as well as a healthcare industry. And so I'm really looking forward to this. Irvi's shared this at a presentation within what we call a community of practice. And you're in for a real treat here. So with that, I'll turn it over to Irvi.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Bob, for that kind introduction. Yes, I do work at Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and that's again a disclosure. All that we will be talking today, presenting, is my own opinion, my personal opinion. This does not represent New York Federal Reserve Bank or the Board of Governors. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll start with a small quick video, and then we can get started with our sprint review anxiety. So let's begin.
I saw a thing, actually, a study that said speaking in front of a crowd is considered the #1 fear of the average person. I found that amazing. Number 2 was death. Death is number 2? This means to the average person, if you have to be at a funeral, you would rather be in the casket than doing the eulogy.
Any comments? Is it that scary? So that is the topic about, right? The psychological safety, and we're going to look at today how, how people are really anxious about public speaking. And the sprint review is one of the events during a Scrum process that the team always go, and after the work is done, the sprint is completed, they would share that work with stakeholders, the external group, for more feedback. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. This is about why sprint review can be stressful and how to overcome those meetings. So we just touched on that little funny video about how not everybody's comfortable speaking in front of a larger audience with external team members. Technical team, the development teams are really experts, and they're really good at what they're doing. But unfortunately, we will need to learn how to identify that anxiety about sharing, demonstrating our work, taking actions, what type of actions we need to take to manage that anxiety, to feel more comfortable for that event. Making the right decisions and understanding the business and audience. So yes, definitely when we are trying to present, it should be relevant. And we want to make sure that we keep it user-friendly language, very basic, that we can convey our message to our stakeholders, our client, and get their valuable feedback. And then building a support infrastructure to manage your anxiety. So let's look at it more. As you all are familiar with Scrum events, Scrum defines several events that occur in each sprint: sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, and then sprint retrospective. So sprint review is our area of topic to this. This is the area where when we get there at a sprint review event, that is when the team, the agile team, including development team members who are actually working on those items and actually working on that execution work, they would share their work at the end of that iteration. So let's look at the official, what is the sprint review meeting? At the end of the sprint, I've been saying this over and over again, the sprint review meeting is held. And during this time, the team will demo the work they accomplished to the stakeholders and business owners. And one of the goal is to inspect those items and get the valuable feedback. Also, they would adjust the backlog based on the feedback. If things need to be reprioritized, refined, they would consider, the product owner would consider that, and then they would start a new sprint based on that adjust backlog. So let's take a pause here. This is funny. Why do I get anxiety when public speaking? So do you see that wobbly legs? And this is more like a feeling of all eyes on me. I'm anxious, and are you going to judge me? So I think everybody before they start, and this reminds me of one of the stories when my daughter was young, she was in elementary school, and she used to sing all those Frozen movies, the songs, along every time. And she did so well, so we really encouraged her to perform at her variety show in elementary school. Guess what? You can imagine that very first time she went on the stage, and that was a dress rehearsal, I think. And she had so much fear, and she was like, "Mom, I can't do this." She was very nervous. She was really overthinking. I think kids will make fun of her. What if she forget her lines? What about how does she look? So how would people judge her? And maybe next day people would laugh at her. The kids would laugh at her. But again, this is all fear. That's a fear complex. What did we do about that? Anybody wants to comment on what would help her in that situation?
I guess practice and realize the audience most of the time really wants you to succeed.
That's really, yeah. So this is a situation about an elementary student on the stage wants to perform, but have a fear and anxiety, of course, about performing in front of an audience and not being comfortable. So yes, practice is one of them. Very good.
And certainly if she's going to be doing this with other peers, she needs to understand that her other peers feel the same exact way she does. So she's not alone.
Great insight. Yes.
Tell her about an experience you may have had.
Good one. Yeah. Yes, that would help her to calm down.
Probably for her to just know that she's the subject matter expert. The audience are really waiting to hear what she has.
Absolutely. Yep. Okay. So anything else anybody wants to add? Go ahead.
A PG-13 version of an old method was view the audiences in their swimsuits. Nobody's heard that. Okay. By the way, for what is sprint? Sorry.
Oh, okay. Very good. No problem at all. So for an agile team, and I hope you have some background about agile. In the agile framework, one of the framework that teams use is a Scrum framework in agile, and Scrum is time boxed. So Scrum is all about iterative development. So basically, if you recollect the traditional project management, I'll go one screen up, the slide up. So if you remember in our traditional project management flow of execution, we did upfront planning. So we had a project, we had a project charter, and then we did upfront planning for the overall project execution. And then we created our plan, the project plan, with your milestones, timeline, right? And then the team starts working on it, right? So what was the drawback of that traditional waterfall approach? So I can go ahead and explain. So just so that we can move on with the presentation. So one of the drawback was that it was too late by the time we completed our work and we were ready to deliver that to our client, to our customer. If there were any changes, time is changing so fast. There were any changes, it was too late for us after the whole development was completed, tested. Now we are ready to deliver, and then we come to know that, oops, this product is no longer, adding value to what we're looking for. So Scrum is all about iterative development. So we do all of that, but we are doing it in iteration. So the sprint is nothing but a time box event. It goes from 2 weeks to 4 weeks, where we do all of these activities in iteration. So we do a planning, we define, we work on those things, and then we review, and then we deliver the value, right? So it's an iterative delivery of the value. Hope that helps. And that is a sprint. So sprint is the time box event. Now going back to our slide here. And yes, thank you for all your input regarding the story I was sharing. And that's exactly what we did. We made sure that, first of all, she really, she tried it in front of her friends, family, we made her a little bit comfortable performing in front of a smaller group, right? And then memorize her lines. But we also gave her a little cheat sheet just in case, to make her comfortable. If she forget her lines, she could go and quickly look at that. Dress comfortably, so she's not worried about, how do I look, all of that. And then I was standing behind the curtain just so that making sure that I'm here with you behind the stage. And guess what? She did really well. So that was a very first time experience for us, for her, but it worked out really well. And practice, yes, definitely. When memorizing the song, memorizing lines, performing in front of a smaller group, that was all part of practice. So there you go. We hit the right point. And now, public speaking, as you see, affects 75% of world's populations. This is so normal. So people are good at what they do, but not everybody is comfortable speaking in front of large audience, right? And they have all these different fear criterias about judgmental audience, forgetting the content. What if the technology, right? You could have issues. You run into issues. You may have some uncertainty. And yes, but that's fine. That's okay. We could still go ahead and prepare better, learn lesson learned, and then we can do better next time. So one of few examples, like not just the sprint review, but I wanted to cover, we have different events, right? The Scrum events that we just touched on. And one of them is our daily Scrum. So which is we also call it daily stand-up. It's a 15 minutes, a meeting, and where the whole team would gather 15 minutes every day, and they would just come and talk, right? The collaboration. So this is not like a status update meeting. This is more about, what did you do a previous day? How did it go? If you have any blockers, what are you looking to do the very day, and what is next, right? That kind of update for the team. But, there are reasons why people may not be comfortable coming to that meeting every day. And few of the examples I just put it here, which is very, very likely that, hey, they may have certain work where they are not able to make progress, and it's really, they don't feel comfortable to come back and say, oh, I'm still working on it. And maybe they're not able to define the blockers so well, but it's hard for them to come back and have no updates, and they may feel a little bit stressed about, not having to share something new. Or maybe, they may be struggling. So they may have challenges with their skill set or the environment setup, whichever way. If it's a software development, that would be related to technology, skill set, type of work they will be working on, or it could be even the code reviews, right? So these are few examples which may make team members uncomfortable to come to that event, the daily Scrum event. And for sprint review, which is today's topic, mainly because of, so team members may be struggling again. They don't know what is the right thing to say and the right amount of information they may want to present. We don't want to go too much into technical details because not every your stakeholders, your business owners may understand that technical level of details. But at the same time, they also want to keep at a level where you are able to convey, like, how much work is done to meet those goals, the business goals. How is the predictability and how do we look if there were any challenges, like you don't have certain level of infrastructure that is needed, or there's some dependency that you're stuck and you're waiting on people to get those work done first, things like that, right? So sprint review can be stressful just because of different factors that may be involved when you're actually presenting it. So Yerkes Dodson law. So what is this? Now, Harvard Business Review, actually, one of the things, and this is really an experiment. Actually, this is based off. It says a little stress is a good thing because that might help you with your performance, right? So, what was this experiment? What was this theory about? So, they did an experiment using a mild electric shock. They were able to teach the mice to learn a task. So this was just experiment on the mice, and which they call it like a habit. They were giving a mild shock to the mice to make them learn a task, and they started calling it a habit more quickly. But as the shocks got stronger, the mice took longer to learn the task. Maybe because they were more focused on avoiding the shock than on completion of the task. So you could relate that the push, right? The level of stress. So as you see here, like the performance, as you see the bar, weak to strong performance, some stress is good. Yes, you get to that optimal point. And at that point, but when the mice they were trying with a stronger shock on the mice was more focusing on that shock event and not so much on the tasks, just because they were scared of that electric shock. So they were trying to avoid that, and the focus shifted from what they were trying to do from how they were feeling. So this was one of the reviews that Harvard had presented, and this is called Yerkes Dodson law. This can provide you more reference if you're interested in reading about the performance, how it is related to your mental stress and your physical stress.
So are you saying that we should be shocking our developers?
Exactly. That's where it's going, right? We need to learn how to say no. And isn't that so normal that everything is critical? Whenever we get a list of things, they were always due like yesterday, and people really want to get it done, and it's always late, and it's like creating. And again, it is so hard that people just come up with those list of items, high criticals, without even like breaking the work and knowing what exactly it will take, the capacity, the level of effort, and all of that. So I think Agile is about bringing an awareness, making self-organizing teams where they can say no, and take a control of how to get that work done based on what is expected, what level of work is expected. So all right, so let's look at a few things. How do we overcome sprint review anxiety? Yes, I think we already heard about practice. So preparing for your demonstration, your review session is the key to what you're going to present. Whatever you're going to present is not new. That is something the team worked on. So we literally started from scratch. The product owner will bring you the requirement. The team will swarm. They will figure out how that needs to be done. And our technical experts will work on those items, and they will execute those. So it is all about presenting that work for your timely feedback. The sprint review is all about getting that feedback at the right time so you can make changes that's needed, and you can shift the priorities if that's what is needed. So prepare the list of items team want to show off, right? basically you always start with that list. So let's say team worked on, there's a sprint goal. So you focus on your sprint goal. What was committed? What was your goal that you were trying to meet for this sprint? And then you try to, maybe you committed to 10 items, let's say, in that sprint. And not all 10 could be, you don't have to review each and every little thing. If there could be some of the backend type of work, there could be some of the documentation type of work. This is the time for the team to shine and get feedback. So I always encourage my team to share their work, not just, so that they feel comfortable, but this is the time to show off what we are working on, where we are, and then getting that timely feedback will help them to correct their actions. So prepare the list. Yep. Describing the tasks while simultaneously presenting, it makes easier to navigate through the application. Know your audience. This is so much important. So I think that was the first question I asked Bob when he suggested me, hey, would you like to, do this session? And I was like, Bob, how do we look at the maturity of our audience from Agile experience, right? Are we looking to cover more at the basic level? And I'm glad someone just asked me a question about what is a sprint. And that was a great question, because I'm sure there are others who may have the same question, and happy to share, let's get to that level and not just call it a sprint and talk about that more without knowing what sprint is even like, why are we doing this? So know your audience. That is so much important. So you can focus your demo, your presentation to meet their interest and get the right feedback. Understand the business. So, and feel free if you have any questions, comments, would love to hear from you. This is based off of my personal experience for all these years. I have worked with healthcare, financial industries. I've done multiple agile transformation, as part of transformation journey, and have been working with, my background comes from software engineering as well. So I have experienced some of this already. So feel free if you have any comments, any suggestions, anytime, jump in. Understanding business is our, when we try to create a sprint goal, right? We are committing to our work. It is all adding value to our business, right? What business is looking for. And then when we break down our work, we also want to break it down to a level, to a logical, meaningful level where it is adding a value at every iteration, right? So we just don't break down work for the sake of, and it's hard for software. You can't just break down work at development and testing kind of work. We are trying to complete that development and testing in that one iteration, which will add the overall value to the work that you're delivering. And then practice. So we did that. One of my prior work teams, we had like a mock review. So when I joined the team, they were new, obviously new to Agile journey, and nobody was comfortable, and they was trying to like avoid. They were like, why do we need to review? And why not Scrum Master can review, or product owner can just go ahead and show what we did? Well, guess what? It is your time, the actual people who worked, because they have those hows and how did they do it? What were the challenges that came across? How did they overcome it? So that is the best time for the actual team members who work on it to share their work and get that feedback. And I'll get to next. There's a agile principle of working side by side with our business owners. So more frequently we work with them, we're closing that gap between business and dev teams. And then that's what will give us a valuable product.
If I could add,
Please.
What I've been trying to encourage my teams, like what you're saying, Irvi, you don't want, one person giving the demo and everybody, one person doing all the talking. So I've been trying to get my product owners and the stakeholders to actually give the demo, because what ends up happening is they kind of really project a sense of ownership and pride when they start showing the thing off. And there's nothing better than when you see that. And to me, that's when you really find that sweet spot as far as working, with an agile team and stuff. And I'm really curious to hear from everybody else out there, what their experience has been as far as, getting more than one person just doing this.
Anybody would like to share your experience with how do you demo your work? Yeah, maybe you can think about it, come back. Happy to hear, what works, what doesn't work. And we can always keep trying. So thanks, Bob, for that. Moving on. All right. So some candy canes here. So what are the tips now? What do we, these are quick again, and it won't be applicable to every nature of work. So I would say this is just based on, again, my own experience working with the teams and what worked for us. There may be times, some of the nature of work, your commitment, your goals would be different, and you might want to tweak it a little bit. But definitely the first thing that, and I said that before, like communication, right? You communicate in a simple language that your targeted audience, like if they're business owners, they won't really understand what your SQL query is, or what your code behind, right? So if you are talking about any technical work, right? It will be really that communication would be more like one-sided because the business owners won't really get that, first thing. Secondly, they are more looking from your achievement, from how does that add value to your product. So I think it would be better if we keep it at that level, so that business owners would know, like, okay, so and so feature is being delivered, and then how we can integrate those features with upcoming work, right? So keep it simple, communicate in the language that we speak with business owners. Review the key value drivers. Now, this may be not applicable to every sprint, so we're going in iteration, right? So, but what would be those key value drivers? It could be your efficiency, it could be your, and again, if you're going in the financial terms, like, if you are saving big, you're saving some time would be a good thing. Some of the features that you add to your product may add value in the form of reducing time, or if there's a lot of load balancing issues, networking issues, that kind of thing. So it depends on the nature of work you're delivering, and then you could review that what is that efficiency, what business is looking for in terms of improving that product. So those would be your key drivers, and that you would share, so that would add value to your to your product. Not sure if everybody is familiar with with the burn down. Those are metrics. Burn down is nothing but your sequence of work. So you are and metrics again. So that's a measuring, right? How you measure your work, so once you break down your work at that level, burn down will actually help you understand that how you're executing, how you're completing that work, and not having like those big size stories that goes throughout your sprint and then you just mark it as complete. Burn down is more like you get work done as you execute, right? So you break it down into a logical size of work so that you can see how that effort is being burned and how you're executing it, so that it assures us, it's a predictability measure where it will tell you how much is your remaining work and how long that may take for you to complete based on the size of the work. So we will be sizing the work, and that is one of the metrics that helps us to look at the flow of our work. Bob, feel free if you want to add anything to burn down. I don't know how many people are familiar with burn down metrics, but
I think you covered it really well.
thank you. Yeah, okay. Discuss what problem. Yep. So again, I would say the very first time when we did a mock review, right? We focus on what is it that team is not comfortable about. Is it the actual demo piece itself? Like, do they think that they'll not be able to run that demo in the environment, or they have any data related issues that they would like to, whichever review sessions they run, there would be different areas of that team may want to consider. What is it that they're not comfortable with? Or as we said, the public speaking, who will present it, right? So the mock review will help you to actually rule out all those non-comfortable zones. So basically, you'll first lay out the list that you want to demo your work. And then you'll make sure that you have some kind of dummy environment, right? Like for instance, staging environment, or we never demo in a production environment. So it could be your practice environment that you could, or a development environment too, where team members are developing their applications, right? You literally use that environment, make sure you have a right set of data that you can run certain scenarios, right? It just relates to your test cases. When you run your use cases, your test results, you know what is your positive flow, what is your negative, so you may run those scenarios just so that business owners, and if they have questions, right? What if you try this? What if? So you could run those scenarios, use cases with them, and then that will help them to provide a better feedback. And you will also know what your issues and problems are that needs to be solved. From performance improvements, I think I covered one of the load balancing network issues, which would make it slow down. So we ran into issues where because of the proxy, other related issues, it will slow down your applications to run. So you might want to make sure that you have that very basic set of data, which will not make your queries run for hours or over like 10 minutes and you're stuck. So just take a small set of data, very simple, run an application which could run in quick seconds so that you can show the basic flow of work, what you did. And that would make it easier. So that would another tip that you could try out. And then, yes, your feedback is most important. The whole intention of sprint review is to get that feedback. So save some time for questions, answers. If you think there are more enhancements that you could try out, the better ways of doing things, feel free to share that. Also, don't forget to share all the challenges that you ran into. What took you? How did you overcome those challenges? And I just said that before, but I can emphasize much on this, that you have to make sure that if you had any additional scope of work that you identified while you were trying to build this functionality, right? You need to make business owners aware that that piece of work needs to be included and how we can, execute that work. I'll take a pause. Any questions? I know we are covering like a lot of, and this sounds more from the software development area of work. But if you have any questions related to non-technical teams or any of that, we can try, to address that. Okay, feel free though. Just feel free. You can put, and Bob or John, I'm not looking at the chat, so if you have any questions in the chat, happy to address that as well.
I'm watching the chat. So
Okay.
far it's been pretty quiet. So
right. Thank you. Okay, so there comes Scrum again. So we're focused on more because the sprint review is our a Scrum event. So what are the Scrum values that might help us here? And this is how, when we onboard Agile team, right? And based on the nature of work, we say, okay, we want to be a Scrum team where we could time box our work and our product delivery. So we agree, we have certain agreements, and we really recognize those Scrum values. So basic values are respect, and that builds trust. So building trust is so important for an agile team. That itself, so once you have that respect for each other, the team members, and you build that trust, that itself will make you most comfortable to share your work with rest of the team members, right? And then once you start building that trust with your business owners, your product owners, the product level, product managers, that will make you more and more comfortable again. So you won't even think of it as a public speaking or how am I going to handle this? It would be more like your daily communication, collaboration with different teams, right? So building trust is our first thing we would do. Respect for individuals' capabilities and independent. Yeah, so we need to appreciate our independent skill set and thinking, right? It's a cross-functional team. Agile team is a cross-functional team, and each member have his own expertise, his or her expert areas of working. Once you start appreciating that individual capabilities, you would start respecting, and then it becomes easier to have a courage to have that open discussion. So that is another level of comfort. Once you have that courage, right? Once you have that team bonding, there would be no place for like discomfort, like, oh, there's no judgmental zone, that you don't have to think like you're being judged. What would people think about you? You know, how do I say this? Or even if you don't have that skill set, right? We do get into these situations many number of times where team members may not have that business experience or skill set when we start. But hey, we want to train, we want to have that opportunity for team member to raise hand and courage to say, hey, I want to learn something new. And that's a growth mindset. So we definitely encourage that. And that our Scrum value add to that courage. And asking for feedback again, back to, we want to understand where people come from, their perspective. And we also want to appreciate their feedback so we can tweak our way of work or priorities as needed. Yes, this is something I was referring to, agile principles. So one of the principles, so there are 12 principles.
Irvi, you have a hand up from Tom Masucha.
Hey, go ahead. Yes,
Hi, Irvi. The one thing, and it struck me when you were talking about the team, the agile or the sprint team, and then the product owners and any key stakeholders that are involved in it, is that to the team, they're a team. They're not technically individuals, at least as I see it, because I think the problem is that as a product owner, if I come into a sprint review and the first thing I'm doing is I'm saying, I want to know what the devs did. I want to know what the QA did. I want to know what the business owner did or the business analyst did. And so I can do that. That's not the way you work through it. What you do is the team presents, like you said, the product or what is going to be potentially the deliverable. And as a product owner or as a key stakeholder, you're only evaluating that deliverable. You're not evaluating who did it or how it was done. It's just, did it meet your thing? And I think that's one of the things sometimes, whether it's the Scrum Master, someone's got to make sure that in the end of the day, they're not pointing fingers or trying to find who was at fault. The team's a team, and they should work together as a team. So just what I heard, that's just something that strikes me, because I actually had a sprint review today. So that was the first thing I ended up doing, was making sure that my team, not only do I respect it, I applaud them every single time that they present, but also to make sure that there's no way that they can't ask me a question that I'm going to turn around and attack them, because I said that's just not the way I work.
It's great to hear. Thanks for sharing, Tom. That's great. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. It is not about who did it or a finger point. No, this is a teamwork. We are delivering something together, taking accountability as a team, as one sprint goal. And we are part of that, right? So yes, absolutely. But we need to close the gap specifically with the business and team, the dev team, right? The agile teams. So that is so much needed. And one of the agile principles that I was about to present was about working together, right? On ongoing throughout the process. So we don't want the agile team to not know who the business people are or where is this one coming from, like, and then there's only this product owner here who will bring in that. But again, we want that interaction, the real communication between business and the dev teams, so that we don't miss on anything, right? And high stakeholder, yes, the stakeholders engagement is so much needed for that high quality of work. And trust, again, we're coming back to building trust, because that itself will make us one team and we're doing this together. Yeah. I just touched a little bit upon to a good user story writing. So yeah, so how do we, so I know we get those requirements in business terms, and now product owner and our tech leads or whoever would actually bring it to the team, right, in the form of the technical requirements, what exactly we're looking for, or if certain application already exist, where does this fit in, and how do we do, how we could leverage the existing code or things like that, right, make it better. So when we break down our work, I think having that detailed story, the backlog, is so much important, right, to have that clarity of work that we're bringing to the team. So the what part of it, what are we trying to achieve? And then let the team refine with product owner and then plan about the how we would be getting there, how we would work on that. So that would be team decision. By writing a very good user story. So one of the examples, so I know that technical team members may not be so good at writing user stories, or they would assume that, oh, we know this, I don't have to write this, write this down. But I think it is so much important that invest is one of our ways of, as you read here, independent, negotiable, valuable, yes. But for technical nature of work, we also created like a sample template kind of thing where we really make sure that a team won't miss on the actual implementation steps, what goes into that, how would you test it, what goes into like the use cases, your testing scenarios. That should be all added to your story description as much as possible. So let's say the team member who was assigned is out one day, and we really want to have this again as a team effort and not just the person who it's assigned to, right? So the other person could literally read that description and say, hey, I can help you. If he's out one day, maybe I can pick it up and just finish it, whatever is. So to that level of detail, right? And then we would obviously, the stakeholders, the business folks would also have access. They can see that. Maybe it was more technical terms, but it is, we need that transparency and clarity for it. So that's where we're going.
And there's a question in the chat from Jacqueline. And basically it reads, you've mentioned that the sprint review offers a great opportunity for the team to give feedback. How important are feedback loops in sprint review process, and how can they be best implemented?
So I'm sorry, Bob, can you repeat how important is a sprint? Sorry,
How important are feedback loops in sprint review process, and how can they best be implemented?
Sure. All right. So here's the deal, right? So no matter what level of features or what level of development the team is working on, once we have that review session, which is so much needed with our stakeholders or business folks, and once they are looking for any changes, or let's say a different way of doing it, we'll get some level of feedback, right? So a product owner is going to prioritize that feedback. So we collect that feedback. We get all that changes needed, the flow, it could be the execution pattern. But what we would do is we collect that feedback and then have that in our backlog first thing, so the product owner can prioritize that. So we need to, and again, I don't know how many of you are familiar with, you have to first look at the Moscow, right? The requirements gathering. We come back to a level 1. Must do it, should do it, should have, nice to have, that kind of feature. So if that is a showstopper, like, if the feedback what we get, if there's additional work, that could be one way of looking at it. And if that is a critical, then we would prioritize it, definitely, right? If it's a nice to have, it's for something we're trying to add a feature to make things easier, or it can wait, it will be, you know, added and refined accordingly. So it depends what level of feedback we get, and then we adjust our backlog for our team execution. So that is, but does that answer your question, or you have anything specific? Feel free, you can come on the, you know, you can.
I have a question. When you're doing your sprint review, is it just for the product owner, or are there other potential people on the business side present for that? Sometimes I've been in cases where, you know, if everybody's happy and working together, it can be a very nice environment, and you're building features, and they can be exciting. But sometimes it's a little bit adversarial if you're not doing things fast enough, or if there's production bugs that are, you know, competing with some of the, you know, other things that you're trying to implement, you know, just from product releases. How do we deal with maybe business owners that might need to be won over, or maybe have frustration or hostility because of how things have run in the past?
So again, we definitely, and again, I agree with you, like not every sprint review you may expect the business owners or external teams to join that meeting, right? Your review session. It depends. But again, I would encourage, and one of the things here is there's always a gap when, you know, the leadership stakeholders and the actual teams working on those
Yes.
backlog, right? And we're really trying. So we're really encouraging leaders, managers, you know, and that is why we're going through, you know, building that trust and predictability, because they would never know. They would always be at a different level. And then people go through a lot of anti-patterns to find out what's going on and to find out the status of work, you know, the waterfall status.
Right.
And they get into that anti-pattern, unfortunately. So I think it is the best thing to include. And again, you may have to categorize your stakeholders. So not everybody is needed. You know, it depends on the influence the stakeholder may have on that nature of work that you are executing for that specific sprint goal. But I would highly encourage that you at least have, if not all, at least include that stakeholder group or the business person, whoever makes more sense, to have that more than just the product owner. That would be really valuable from feedback standpoint.
Just to add to what, you know, Barbara asked, if you look at that principle that Irvi shared, you know, business people and developers must work together daily.
Yep.
So if you're doing it right, the sprint review shouldn't be a surprise, because they should be seeing what's being built, you know, on a daily basis. And when at a previous employer, we met, our customer was in Pune and Chennai. So we met with them in the morning and showed them what we built, got their feedback, and then worked on it that day, and then put it out there so they could see it again. So every day they were seeing something new, and we were getting feedback every day. So by the time we came to the sprint review, it was exactly what they wanted. And that's when you find that sweet spot. But it's hard to get there. You know, you have to get a lot of trust, and you have to get people talking. But that's how you avoid those arguments. Like when you get to your sprint review, that's not what I wanted. Then basically maybe the customer or the stakeholders weren't sending the right people to talk to the developers. And those are the
Right.
kinds of things you can work out. You know, that's just an idea, you know, Barbara.
No, that's great that you can potentially almost do like a little mini sprint review all through the sprint. So you can get continual feedback on how you're doing. And, you know, sometimes if you have just that one representative that truly represents the business goals, and they're working one-on-one with you, that's less intimidating than if you have, you know, 5 people looking over you. And if you can trust that person, and that person understands, you know, what the business wants and can work together with you, then I think that also helps put the team at ease. They're a friend. They're there to help you be successful, not to, you know, that they want you to be successful too, so that you can deliver what you need to deliver with each sprint. But I'm not experiencing this now, but I have experienced it in the past. And that's just like when you're talking about a sprint review and trying to have the team feel comfortable and not anxious, part of it is, this whole project management bit has to be something that the whole company buys into. It can't just be.
Barbara, I think you
Is
cut
that
off.
just me? Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay. Maybe we'll continue once she's back. Yeah, but another thing also, I realized that it's not just only for stakeholders, it is also kind of an acknowledgement for the actual team members, that they really get to interact with the business people and see the value of their contribution to the work. So it's a kind of appreciation and acknowledgement for the team as well.
And just as a time check, Irvi, we have
Yeah.
less than 10 minutes.
Okay. So let's see how much we have left. So we have a couple more slides. Again, the reason I was touching on different areas is just that how do we make sure that team feel comfortable overall? And this is not just about that psychological safety with this review process. That is all about presenting the work, but it is all about your day-to-day actual work that you perform, working with team members, our own team members, internal, external team members, how you can build those relationships, strengthen that relationship with your business, your stakeholders. That is much needed, right? So I'm going to quickly see how many more slides I have, and then we can, I think I just have a couple more slides. So, but feel free, if you have questions, we can stop at any point. Yep, so the 5 dysfunctions, as some of you, or most of you may be familiar, every time, when we start with our Scrum team or Agile onboarding, there's a stage that we look for, right? How is team doing? So when a new Scrum Master would join the team, you would listen in, you would try to learn the team dynamics, how team members are interacting with each other, and the level of transparency, right? Those 3 pillars of Scrum: transparency, inspection, and adaptation. That's making them stronger. But the 5 dysfunctions, again, we're going back to the trust. That was the biggest. This is a model coming from Patrick Johnny, and he had put this pyramid regarding what are the different areas that are dysfunctions of a team. So going back to trust, trust is so much important. Conflict, yes, there could be, there could be conflicting situations but those are healthy conflicts. Again, let's not fear of conflict. You should not have a always conflict is bad, right? That's not what it is. But this conflict relates to, as I said, lack of trust may lead to the fear of conflict. So that is what it is referring to. And then obviously, making those decisions, the commitments might be challenging with those weak areas of trust and conflict. So that is what I was trying to address. And I'm moving on just so that we can cover the remaining items. I think this is again another important aspect of how we can make teams comfortable, more self-organized. Why working agreements matter? Yeah, because again, the transparency, which is looked at one of those pillars, having that clarity, right? Having that feedback, acknowledgement from different levels, not just internally, is so much important. So the working agreement plays a big role with that mutual understanding, right? This is how we will be working together, which will again reduce your conflict, build trust, back to that, and then improve your communication. But if I just put a little note at the bottom that the stress level, the reports, the American Institute of Stress, it says that 80% of us, they feel stressed out on the job, and 92 of that come from worries over team dynamics. So I think, and that's the reason I hit that trust building relationship pretty much every area of talk, every slide, was because we come back to it no matter what event of Scrum, what level of execution path you are on. Those are your basics that you need to start with a self-organizing team. And wrapping up, summarizing our talk today, yes. Sprint review is stressful, yes, but good practicing it, preparing better can make it easier. Entire group will collaborate, yes, so it's a shared responsibility, right? It's not just like Bob said, we're not looking for one person to just demo and showcase what the team worked on, but take the pride for the team. And if something didn't go your way this time, you will get better with your experience and your mock practices. Opening up for any more questions, comments, please.
There's two in the chat to start with.
Okay.
Tom has a question where isn't there a risk to have the PO/business owner and key stakeholders are in the sprint review? Who owns the decision?
Anybody
I
wants
could
to try that?
expand.
Yeah.
Well, I can
Yes.
expand that. So the challenge that I've seen is that when, you know, I only in the beginning when we began Scrum in our company, and it's hybrid to some extent, is the fact that when you add so many people in to make the to review, the problem is that who owns it at the end of the day? If the product owner / business sponsor, whoever you call them, is not the person making the decision, and they can't make the decision, which I've heard that sometimes where someone's a representative, but they can't make the decision. So when you look at something, you say, oh, I don't know if that's right, but then you're going to go find the business owner or the sponsor. That only slows down your sprint because then you can't make it. I'm trying to figure out if I have multiple people there, who's going to control who makes that decision? Because I know Scrum Master is not going to be the judge. So who makes the decision ultimately to be able to say, you know, I'm only listening to one person. The rest of you can have all the feedback you want, but. So I don't know that. I'm asking, you know, Bob, you and Irvi, because, you know, to me, I'm nervous if I start adding a lot of people in, even if it's only 2 or 3 others to review something.
Tom, we could definitely have this, you know, after we have like 3 minutes left. But
yeah, sorry.
The short answer is if you're following Scrum properly, the product owner is the person that owns it. The product owner is responsible for the value that gets delivered. The product owner is responsible for the budget. So it's the product owner. But a lot of times an organization would put a weak product owner in, and then you run into the problem that you're discussing.
Right.
But if you're doing it right, it's the product owner.
Thank you.
And we could talk about this, you know, after the end. And then Jacqueline asked the question, how do you deal with the challenge of integrating feedback effectively after sprint review?
Yeah, I think it's towards the same thing. And I would again, and one more thing I wanted to add to what Bob just said, that product owner is the final yes. But again, as we know, right, as we get that feedback, right, we are collecting that feedback. We don't start right away working on those feedback. You know, we're collecting all that information. And then it's again, coming back to the product owner to first find out more about it. If we need more information, more people involved, have more collaboration, and then prioritize it and then bring it to the team when it's the right time. So when the team is actually going to review it and make sure that the definition of ready is met to be able to work on that, there's a lot more going on before that. So we don't actually start right away like, hey, this sprint review is done, now we got feedback, now let's put that in the next sprint. No, that's not, unless it's critical and product owner again makes a decision, right, refinement, planned, and then it would just come in as your final, you know, any other backlog item. So that's how the team will get to it. Absolutely. Yep.